I got a lot of personal experiences that I won't tell you about. But first of all, I want to thank Aaron for having me come here today, because I always felt that's kind of my responsibility. I did have Lyme disease for over 19 years, and like a lot of people who have it, I got a little bit better, enough so that I could come here and talk to you today. But I always noticed that these people, when they got a little bit better, they just left, and they didn't do this. They didn't come out, and they didn't become advocates. And I think we have a responsibility to do that. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. I want to try to talk to you about prevention and awareness. I'm not going to talk at all about the medical aspects of it, and I really can't answer any questions regarding that because I have no formal medical background. And Lyme disease is by far the most controversial medical condition that is available, that is out there. No two doctors agree on the treatment. No two doctors will agree whether or not you actually have Lyme disease. It's extremely difficult. And what makes it even worse is that all of us, somewhat similar, but we're all a little bit different. So that the Lyme disease can affect you, every one of you, in a different way. It would be nice if you got Lyme disease, everybody has things in common. One arm would turn green, and one arm, say, would turn yellow. That's my old school news. I'm from Clinton, that's our school colors, you know. And wouldn't that be nice? You could say, look at the green arm on that guy, oh my God, you know. But there isn't. There's no real common symptoms that everybody has to have. So it's difficult to know. That's the other problem. Another problem, and I'll talk about it more, what I'd like to do today, if it's okay, just give a brief synopsis of some of the things you may know now, but may not know, and then we'll turn it over to questions and answers. Is that okay, sir? All right, thank you. First of all, congratulations to the people of Sterling. This is a really nice Sterling Center. This center is nice. So people who voted for it, who got behind it and provided help to get this and acquire this building and the facilities, congratulations to all of you, really. I'll give you a little bit of my background, and you had asked for that, and I never sent it to you. I apologize for that, but I'm from Clinton. I was a teacher in the Clinton school systems for, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred years, a long time, and I retired. It seemed like you're never going to retire, then all of a sudden, it's your last day, you know, and it was a kind of a shock to the system. I was just talking with Brendan about retirement. In the first few weeks I retired, it wasn't easy. It's psychologically hard. And I remember one night, I said, not getting in an argument, but just an disagreement with my wife on how to stack the dishwasher. And that's when I knew. I said, I got to get another job. And I've had a lot of jobs in my life. My main job was a teacher. I taught industrial arts at Clinton High School for 37 years, which was a very good job. I had great kids, and they luckily I had a good subject area. I taught graphic arts, photography, silkscreen printing, and mainly offset printing. And in those old days, they could learn something about offset printing, then get a job at the Colonial Press in Clinton. Remember the Colonial Press? It was, when I was there, it was the largest book manufacturing company in the entire world. They employed over 1,900 people. So they could get a job, and it wasn't union, but they made good money, and they learned their skills. So if they didn't go to college, they could go down there, and they did very well. But I'm here to talk to you about Lyme disease. I want to give a little history of Lyme disease. Everybody says to me, and I used to say this myself, Brendan, you used to mention that to me, or the other gentleman we were talking to. And everybody says, you know, when I was a kid, there was no Lyme disease. We didn't stay in the house with our stay in our house with our cell phones. We were out playing outside all the time. We were out in the woods all the time. We didn't worry about ticks. We never got ticks. There wasn't any. Well, evolution doesn't work that way. There were always some around. And there's many more now, and that's people argue is why, but there's many more now. But they were always around. So Lyme disease was always here. Ticks were always. It's a very old, the oldest. I think in Italy, all the glaciers are starting to melt, right? And they found a man frozen, and he was well preserved. And they did I think it's a carbon testing they call it, and he was like 3,300 years old. And they tested this poor guy, UTIZ, that was a name, I don't know what the heck kind of name that is, but that was they gave him. And come to find out, he had Lyme disease 3,300 years ago. So it was been around for a long time. Doctors did not know about this. I remember when I was sick, particularly at first, there was a lot of doctors that believed there was no such thing as Lyme disease. And it was very, very difficult. But there was always a few that did and were willing to try to treat you. And they were called LLMDs. So if you want a specialist in the treatment of Lyme disease, find out if he is an LLMD, stands for Lyme Literate Medical Doctor. Now, why would some doctors become Lyme literate? Did they go to a special school, a special college? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I asked a lot of people. Nobody seemed to know. I even went back. I went to college up in Maine, University of New England, right in Biddeford, Maine. Beautiful school, right on the water. Right behind my dorm was the beach. It was Hills Beach and it was Biddeford Pool. It was hard to study. There was always a lot of things you could do. Besides, thank God it wasn't COVID. It wasn't at the time. And it wasn't that big a school, but it was a pre-med school. I didn't take any of those courses. I wanted to be a social worker. And the pre-med, it was a very difficult pre-med. My roommate was a pre-med student, and he was very smart. I'm not dumb, but I'm not smart either. I was just average, and that would have been a big stretch for me to get in that pre-med. But I tried to find out through the college. I actually called them. This was a couple of years ago, well, maybe more than that. I said, do they cover Lyme disease a lot for treatment for educational purposes? And it's, no, we don't have anything. It's not part of our program. I said, well, why not? She said, well, there's no room in the curriculum for it. You have no idea how much we have to cover with these students that are go out and becoming primary care physicians. We just don't have room for it. We don't. So now that I thought for sure it was treated in med school, but it's not. I kept researching, kept asking people, never got the answer. Then finally I found out it was a very simple thing. All the primary care physicians that are LLMDs or Lyme literate, willing to treat, willing to accept the fact that it is a problem, they themselves have Lyme disease. So they know. Just every single one. And there's a few doctors in this area that are LLMDs, and they have Lyme disease. They're suffering from it. This mic, I just feel like I want to start singing. I won't. I wouldn't do that to you. No. So that's a brief history of Lyme disease. It's been around a long time. It's not something new. The other thing people ask me a lot, where are the areas? Where is it usually found? Well, right here in Sterling, in Central Mass, is what they call a highly endemic area. There are a lot of, it was very prevalent in this area. In the Northeast, all the states of the Northeast. Maine used to be not too much, but now with the climate change is affecting it, and Lyme disease is moving up through Maine. It's now becoming a problem in southern Canada, but it's primarily along the East Coast, along the Great Lakes, and in the western states, Washington, Oregon, Northern California is where you'll find the most Lyme disease areas. We're endemic, this area isn't. So don't think because you live here, you're covered. You don't have to worry about it. You do. As a matter of fact, I try to get some exercise. I walk a lot. One of the places I walk is right over here at the Sterling railroad, behind the rail trail, Sterling Rail Trail. I also walk over in the West Boylston Rail Trail, those two places. Sterling is nice because it's not as far. If you do you park behind the antique house, walk to the end and back, it's 4 miles. You go over to the West Boylston one and you park in their parking lot and walk up to Holden and back, it's 6 miles. So that's a lot for me. But I'm telling you about this because you can't believe how many ticks I see along these rail trails right here. And somebody will say to me, and they always say to me after giving a talk, I was giving a talk at the Worcester Central Mass Lyme Foundation. A lady came out, she says, I enjoyed your talk, but you know, you really shouldn't tell people you can see them. You can't see them. They're too small, you can't see them. I said, no, I'm telling you, I see them all the time when I walk. Oh, really? I said, yeah, oh, really? I said, you don't believe me? She says, no, I don't believe you. Stop saying that. I said, well, what are you doing tomorrow? She said, why? I said, let's take a walk. Come over. I'll meet you over there, and we'll take a walk up the rail trail. And we did. And I told her and showed her how to see them. They're usually at the very top tips of the blades of grass. They climb up there, and they just sit there waiting for you to brush up against them. They do not fall out of trees. They do not fly, but you brush up against them. It's like Velcro. They get into your clothing, and they'll always move upward until they find a place that's convenient for them to get a blood meal. They need 3 blood meals to complete their life cycle. Usually it's over a 2-year period. It can be 3 years sometimes, depending on the weather conditions. So she did. She came over, and I showed her how to see them, and she started finding them. She said, oh my God. She was so happy. She was dancing. She could find the ticks. I said, yeah, just don't walk in the grass. And I go over there now, and I used to tell everybody, and they look at me like, this guy's, there's no ticks. Yeah, okay, thanks a lot, buddy. Just move along, So I don't. It would take me forever to walk 6 miles if I talked to everybody, But sometimes I'm walking up there and I see the parents with little kids, and instead of walking in the middle of the trail where there's no grass, they're off to the sides running through with bare legs and everything, and I stop all the time. I gotta, because Lyme disease affects kids differently, worse. They get a lot of neurological problems. It affects their ability to learn. So it's much more dangerous to a kid. You think of a kid as just being a little adult, but they're different. Their makeup is different. And neurologically, they suffer greatly when they get Lyme disease with headaches. And then all of a sudden, you can have 1 year, you can have a kid who's a great student, has a lot of friends, happy, enthusiastic. A year later, everything with that kid has changed. He has to be put in a lower level. He's in special ed usually because he can't learn anymore. He has headaches all the time. He's always tired. It's just terrible what happens to kids. It changes their life. And the saddest part, and I don't talk about this too much because I get emotional, is when you're a little kid, you need your mother and father. You need their love. Yeah, they might hit you with a board once in a while, but you know that they love you and they will take care of you, right? Well, when you're sick, they don't believe you. When kids are sick, their parents don't believe them. They make them go to school, and they're so sick. It's very sad. Lyme disease, you know about the medical aspects of it and what happens to you, but it's also psychologically damaging. It ruins people's lives. It ruins marriages. You can be sick, and then all of a sudden, you're alone and sick. It's a very tough situation. So I just want to go through some of the things I wrote down because I'm getting old now and I'm getting very forgetful. So I tried to write some things down that would be good and helpful to you people. That's my job today. And I consider it to be a job. For prevention, that's what my talk is about, prevention and awareness. I always say it in that order, but maybe I should say awareness is prevention. Because if you think about it, it is really, if you know about it. So what is Lyme disease? It's a bacterial spirochete. It's the spirochete is small. It's a piece of bacteria they can only see under an electron microscope. But that's what it is, and it has a name. Medically, they always give names to these things. It's called Borrelia burgdorferi. Borrelia burgdorferi. Borrelia is the bacteria, and it's lined up with that. The last part, burgdorferi, is actually the doctor who first discovered it. Lyme was kind of thought to, although it existed for years, thought to be discovered in 1955 in Lyme, Connecticut. There was one street in Lyme, Connecticut. It was a dead end, and there was only about 35, 40 houses on that street. But it seems though every kid was sick. They'd go out and play, and all of a sudden they'd get sick. They'd have knee problems, a lot of problems with their knees, and a lot of arthritic. And the parents and all the doctors would say, wow, what a coincidence. But there was one mother said, this ain't right. This is no coincidence. Why could all these healthy kids suddenly get sick during the course of the summertime? And somewhat similar problems. And they brought down a whole bunch of doctors and researchers. And one of the doctors, last name was beautiful. I can never say the name. Borrelia burgdorferi, I think is how you pronounce his name. And I could never pronounce his name correctly. And when someone told me how to say his last name, I was so happy. One night my wife said to me, what do you want for supper tonight, honey? I said, well, give me a big plate of burgdorferi. And she thinks, boy, the Lyme has affected you, fella. But she made a nice supper anyways. But that's what it's called. And in 1955, I went back to my college, I told you, and I met with the head of the microbiology department. And she says, I want you to sit down with some of the students who are going to become primary care physicians. Do you mind doing that? I said, no, not at all. And I did in a setting like this, and it went pretty good. But then they said, why don't we all go to lunch together? And I did. We went to the school cafeteria, and I loved just going there because I had so many memories from years gone by, And I said, the doctors don't know about this, and nobody's paying attention to this. But this kid stood up, he said, look, I'm from East Lyme, Connecticut. I've had friends who had this. I know what it can do. And I'm going to make a difference. A lot of people have said that they're going to make a difference, but it's hard. It was very difficult. It was hard for me to get treatment, and it was hard for people to believe me. They didn't believe I was sick. I had to take days off from school, and even the other teachers, my friends didn't really believe me. They said, oh, I don't blame you for calling it sick. I negotiated a lot of the contracts for the teachers, and we had a good contract. They still, not as good anymore. They're giving up some of the things, but they had a good contract the teachers did in Clinton. You didn't make as much money as these bedroom community teachers did, but contract-wise, we had a good one. Anyways, nobody believes you. It's difficult. Just think of being sick, and I was very sick. I had pain in my knees that you wouldn't believe. It's not like I didn't want to walk. It was hard walking. After I walked 6 miles, you couldn't walk across the room. I mean, it was tough. And it would go away. And it was crazy. I went to doctors everywhere. The other thing, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the other thing is the cost. The cost of getting help and getting care. I didn't keep a record. I should have kept an ongoing record, but easily I spent out of my own pocket over $200,000 in the course of getting treatment because everything was expensive. And when you're that sick, money don't, I'm sorry, Mr. Valerio, this test will be $800. I said, do it. Jesus Christ, do it, Finally, I went to a doctor in West Boylston, I think over there, but yeah, it was West Boylston. Yeah, you probably heard of it, Dr. LaCava. Do you know him? He is an LLMD. And he did the testing, and I did a follow-up with him, and he said to me, he said, you know, Tom, you're sick. Oh my God, I was so happy. I was delighted. I almost hugged the guy. And he's not that cute. He's a nice guy, but you know, but just someone finally say to me, I'm sick. So I thought that was it. He said, I'm sick. He knows I'm sick. He'll treat me. I'll get better. Well, you know, if you have Lyme, the longer you have it, the harder it is to get it. It gets entrenched in your body. And you can get what they call chronic Lyme disease. So it's much more difficult to get rid of it. And I went to all these specialists. I traveled everywhere. I went to a couple of people in Connecticut. I went to this lady up in, I can't ever remember her name, but I don't know what I did with her now, but she's in Hollis, New Hampshire. She had Lyme disease. She's an LLMD. She had 2 kids with Lyme disease. So she was willing to treat it. I went to see her. I traveled all over. And I went to a lot of Lyme support groups. And I started one. I started a Lyme disease support group up at Neshoba Valley Medical Center. And I said, geez, nobody's going to come to this thing. But we have, a lot of people came to it because there's a lot of people that are sick. And there are people who are sick, they have no idea why they're sick. The doctors don't have no idea. They don't have no idea, but they are sick. They know that. But a lot of people came to this, and just like you have speakers come in, I would have medical practitioners come in and talk about it. And that was very helpful to I hope, everybody. But tonight, I just want to go over and talk to you about some things about prevention and awareness, okay? I brought a tick. This is the biggest tick ever found in North America. I brought one in. I had talked in Worcester at the Central Mass Lyme Foundation in Worcester, and the lady says, what can I give you? What do you need? I said, no, I'm all set. I don't need anything. Thank you for letting me come speak to you. Maybe I help someone tonight, you know? And then I started thinking, I said, you know that stuffed tick you have? She said, yeah, I'd like one of those. And she got me one. So, it's, you know, but this is what they look like. Of course, they're not this big. But they have them, their mouth parts up here. They get on your pants, on your shoes, and they climb up until they hit an area that they can't go any further. And they stop there, and they start their feeding. Usually it takes 3 or 4 days to get the blood meal necessary. And in the course of their lifetime now, they need 3 blood meals. When a tick is born, it doesn't have any diseases. It doesn't have Lyme disease. It acquires them mainly with their first blood meal, which is not deer. It can be deer, but usually deer is later on their last one when they're fairly bigger. When they're small, larvae or nymphs, which you can't see, when they're that small, though, they feed on, and this is very important that you remember this. They don't talk about this. They feed on white-footed mice. They feed on white-footed mice. Mice carries all of these pathogens. So they acquire it with their first blood meal, and they just transfer it to you later on with their second or third blood meal. Every house has mice, all right? And you don't see them because they're nocturnal, but every house has them. Where I lived in Clinton, it's a nice area and they're nice houses, and there was a lot of mice that year. I don't know why, but they're sick or colossal. They're like the gypsy moth caterpillars. There are always some, but every once in a while you get a huge batch of them, and then they'll die off and they repeat the cycle years down the road. Well, that year there was a lot of mice, and I went next door to the lady next door. She was very nice. I liked her a lot, and I knocked on the back door and I said, Mary, I just want to tell you to be careful. There's a lot of mice this year in the area, you know. She says, Tom, what are you doing? I said, I'm telling you, there's a lot of mice in the area. I have a very nice house, she said. I keep it immaculately. It's always clean. Don't you go telling people I have mice. You understand? I said, I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm just telling you. This actually happened. This is the truth. And this was during the day. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. And while I'm talking to her, she wouldn't come out. I said, and there was right aside of where I was standing was a fireplace. And I could see out of the corner of my eye like something moving. And I looked over. There was a mouse coming down the fireplace. I said, Mary, come out here for me. I just want to show you something. Would you stop fooling around? I said, I'm not fooling around. I just come out here. Finally, she did. I just pointed. And she looked at me. She said, oh, my God. Anything to prove her point. Did you have that in your pocket and bring it over here? I said, what are you, crazy? I'm going to put a live mouse in my pocket? I said, no, I'm telling you, they're everywhere. And they were everywhere. And that year, I bought at Home Depot, there's two of them in here, Tomcat, and you can see you put, there's a little cup in the front, you put some food in there to attract them, and they step on that, it releases it, and that thing comes, the teeth comes down, and you catch a lot of mice. That particular year, I caught 26 mouse. And I never saw one during the day, but you see, so white-footed mice, if you have them in your neighborhood, watch out. There's a good chance you also have Lyme disease. The other thing I want to, I keep forgetting, I got to keep this close to me. The other thing I want to tell you about Lyme disease, if you acquire and get Lyme disease, you also, almost 100% of the time, have what they call co-infections. A co-infection is other disease conditions. And the problem with that, they used to think the co-infection was just a little something not to worry about. The big thing was the Lyme disease. No, the co-infections, the word that they use, the medical term they use, they say the co-infections are synergistic with Lyme disease. In other words, they help the Lyme disease stay in your body, they help it to survive in your body, and they make it worse. And they're now starting to find out that these co-infections in themselves are just as bad or can do more damage to you than the actual Lyme disease. And when I finally got tested, I had the Lyme disease, and I had every single co-infection. Some of them are, one of them is Babesia. Babesia it's like malaria. You have the same symptoms. You have unbelievable chills, fever and chills. And there's another one is Bartonella, Babesia, Bartonella, anaplasmosis. All these other conditions come along with the tick bite. So you have to be careful, please. All right. Don't think that it's nothing. Lyme disease is nothing. And now everybody knows about it. If you're here, you already heard about it. You either have it or you know someone who has Lyme disease. Every single one of you, I'm sure. So it's much more common, and you've got to be careful. Let me see what else I want to tell you. So prevention, be careful of the white-footed mice. I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can take with you, because you can figure, by the time you get in the car, you might forget everything I told you. If you're like most of my students, you're taking notes. Thank you. It's not a shopping list, is it? No? Okay, all right. There's a book that you can read. It's called Cure Unknown. Cure Unknown. This isn't a recent book. This lady wrote this book maybe 10 years ago. Cure Unknown. And the author is Pam Weintraub. Pamela Weintraub. There was two authors, but she's the one that's featured all the time. She was a medical writer from New York City. She was working in New York City. She got married. She had a family. She didn't want her kids growing up in the city. So she took a compass and put a mark, in the sharp end where she currently lives, and just drew a circle that encompassed like 30 miles from where she worked. And she says, I want to move out to the suburbs, and she did. And I forget the name of the city she worked in, she moved to. It had a city area, then it had an urban area she could live in. And it was where the Clintons used to live. What's that, what's the name of that in New York? I can't think of the name. A lot of things I can't think of anymore. Where?
Yeah, I know where you mean.
Yeah.
Field or something like that.
Yeah. She moved there anyways, and the kids loved it. They started playing in the woods, in her backyard. They had tree forts and all these different things. Little by little, they all got sick, and they got Lyme disease. And she writes about not only medically what it did to the kids, but how difficult it was to get treatment and to get help. It's a good book to read if you want to know, and if you want, you'll be scared because if this happens to you or your loved ones or kids, it's tough. Cure Unknown, Pam Weintraub. There's also a video, and the name of the video is Under Our Skin. It's about a girl, she was a young lady, she was a dancer, and she acquired Lyme disease and how it changed her life. So those two things are if you want further information. The other thing people ask me, and this is important, they have if you get a tick and you take it off you, save the tick. Have the tick checked. And there's a company out of, it's part of UMass in Amherst, Massachusetts. And you can, if you have computers, I bet all you have computers, when you get home, just type in tickreport.com, and it'll come up. It'll give you all the information of how to take this tick, save it, and they will test it. And they'll tell you if that test is pretty reliable. It's a pretty reliable test. My cousin just came over the house last week, and she came in, and she says, "Tom, you're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" I've seen everything. I'm 82. What won't I believe? And she pulled the pen. Look. I said, all right, you stop that right now. She said, no, stop fooling around, you dope. And she had a tick bite. She went to the doctor removed it, but there was a red mark around it. But it wasn't the classic bullseye. When you first get bit by a tick, it's going to be inflamed, it's going to get red and so forth. I said, make sure you go to the doctor today, save the tick. She did go to the doctor, and the doctor gave her doxycycline. That's the first antibiotic they generally give you. And they don't really tell you the side effects, but all these antibiotics, they're good in what they do, but they have some side effects. And the doxycycline does not kill the bacteria, but it stops it from replicating, and then they'll just die off. And then your immune system generally can take over and protect you. So I forget what happened. Then she came back. The doctor took the tick and had the tick tested. And just yesterday she called me, said the tick has Lyme disease. He had the DNA for Lyme disease. So I didn't want to alarm her, but that is not good news. Should I feel better? I feel all right. She says, and the mark is completely gone. So I think I'm all set. I said, well, what did the doctor do? He said he gave me 2 more weeks of doxycycline, so a total of 4 weeks, which people would say that's more than enough, but maybe it is for some people, but maybe it isn't either. So I don't know. I said, call me every once in a while and just let me know how you're doing. So people have said to me, and you're probably wondering, well, if you get by a tick and you're wondering, you're not feeling good, what's the big deal? Just have a blood test, right? Just get tested, for God's sakes. I said, well, it's not that simple. Oh, Tom, you complicate everything. What do you mean it's not that simple? Of course it is. I said, no, it isn't. Because all the ticks that are currently available are called indirect tests. And what they mean by this, they don't test specifically for the bacteria. What they do test is your body, when it sees this bacteria, it creates what they call antibodies, which will fight the bacteria and help destroy them, hopefully. And these antibodies, it takes anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 months to build up in your body. And the tests measure the antibodies. And if you take the test the day you got bitten, you don't have any antibodies for it until the test comes back negative. I can't tell you how many times I had tests done negative. You don't have Lyme disease. So everybody says, I told you, Tom, it's all in your brain. Just get out there and do things. Go running again. I used to run. And just enjoy life. They have no idea. So tests are indirect called indirect tests. That doesn't help you at all, But the laboratory testing, I got a copy from that, is, just do it on your computer if you want it, www.tickreport.com. And they'll tell you how to sign up for testing, what to do, and there is a cost. I think it's $50. But that $50 includes the tick being tested for the main thing you want, Lyme disease, but also all the co-infections, Babesia, Bartonella, Anaplasmosis. There's a whole bunch of them. Every year that goes by, they find out that there's more things that come with Lyme disease. Doctors now refer to the tick as nature's dirty needle. And if you think about it, that's exactly what it is. It can pass all, but there's a lot of myths. I hate saying it because I don't feel as though I'm ever saying myths. Am I saying it right? Myths. What do I do? You know what I mean, okay? One of them is the tick has to be on you for a long time. Well, the longer the tick is embedded in you, the more chances you will acquire those disease conditions. But you can acquire it as little as 15, 20 minutes after it bites you. So that's not a good guide for you. You just don't want to you want to not get bit by ticks. You want to learn about them. So that's my job today. So let me do that. I don't want to get off the sidetrack. So he tries to get away, but I always have to put him back. Another thing that is very, very important is how you remove the tick. Removing a tick is critically if you don't do it incorrectly. Most of the bacteria in a tick is located in a tick's main area. I can see I got to use him. He knew it. Right in the belly part of the area, his gut of the tick. So if you panic and you get a pair of tweezers and just grab that goddamn thing and pull them out, you're squeezing the tick, and the contents of the stomach with all the bacteria and everything is bad go directly into you. So you have to remove very, very carefully the tick. And what we do, I have, this is given to me by, the girl's name in New Hampshire, the LLMD, is Julia Greenhouse. And she gave me these. I have a whole bunch of them. And you can see the bottom of the spoon is like a V. So the idea is to scoop that underneath and then lift up, straight up. Don't twist it. You just lift up, straight up. And there's a guy who has Lyme disease, and he's made a business for himself. He sells these at a very fine point where you can grab the tick close to the body as possible, and then just lift up slowly and steady. Don't just twist it and break it off and so forth, okay? So how you remove a tick is important. How soon you remove it is important. The longer it stays, the worse your chances are of not acquiring it. And the other thing is, you tend to think that every tick has Lyme disease, and they don't. This is a very highly endemic area, so maybe, I don't know what the percentage is, but probably 50% of the ticks do have Lyme disease and can pass it on to you, and the rest may not. But even if they don't have Lyme disease, how about all those co-infections I just told you about? Yeah, they could have them too. And their symptoms, their medical symptoms, are very close to what the symptoms of Lyme disease. So it's hard. I'm glad I'm not a doctor, a primary care physician today. It's a tough job. Trying to determine, yes, somebody has Lyme disease, no, they don't. How do you treat it? It's very, very difficult. The best thing to do is never acquire the damn thing. Now, people say, well, where did you get it, Tom? Well, maybe at myself and this young lady worked at a golf course for years. You were just a short period there. I was there a couple 100 years, worked there. And I used to come home I take my clothes off, I put them in the corner of the bedroom and put some other clothes on for my next job. I always had 2 or 3 jobs. And my wife used to say to me, why? I never listened to her, I don't know. But she'd say, you know, will you take your clothes off? I said, yeah, what about them? She said, well, I always see ticks climb up the wall there. I said, oh, come on, Evelyn, you can't. Every time you say, yeah, I see a lot of them. I didn't believe her. Well, they were, and when they're crawling up your leg, normally you can't find them. I mean, you can't feel them. I can a little bit, the adult ticks, but normally you don't even know. So, and where do they go? And there are certain spots on the human body that they like. Wherever the veins or arteries are close to the surface of the skin, they can feel the warmth, and they can very easily, with their mouth pads, go into that part and acquire the blood meal that they need. But they're doing some research, and the first thing a tick does after it cuts into you, and you never feel this. There's a reason you never feel the bite. It's not painful, but they inject a little bit of their saliva into your body. And inside that saliva, they found a substance that's similar to it, like a Novocaine. It dulls the pain in that area. You don't have any pain. It also injects something that is an antihistamine. You get a mosquito bite, it'll swell up, it gets itchy. That won't happen with a tick. You know, that'll never happen. And the other thing they're finding out that injects into you is the stuff. I take Eliquis, which is a blood thinner. It injects something, it's not Eliquis, but they'd have to pay for it, right? It's not that, but it's something that does the same thing. It's a blood thinner. So the tick is rather ingenious, and through evolution, it's perfected its ways to get you. But you can usually, if you're looking, it can be found behind the knee, in your ear, behind your ears, along the hairline is the good spot. So people think, yeah, I found them up here by my head. I must have fell out of the goddamn tree while I was walking. Nope. No, they just climb up there. They know where to go, and when they find a good spot, they stay in that spot and they get their blood meal, and then they fall off wherever they are, and then the next spring they lay a batch of eggs to restart the whole cycle again. So be careful. So let me just give you some idea. I think I got it at my Lyme disease at the golf course where I worked, but I'm not sure. I have no idea. I could have got it just cutting the lawn in my front yard. You can get it, it's everywhere, because I had the white-footed mice. I live in Clinton, but I have deer in my backyard a lot. Deer move birds, everything moves the ticks around and so forth. But if you have think about your yard for a minute. Do you have piles of wood? Well, if you have piles of wood, that's condominium development for white-footed mice. If you have stone walls, New England, we all have stone walls, right? You're going to have white-footed mice in those areas. So you have to be careful. The one thing that the ticks don't like is they like warmth and moisture. So when I go over to the rail trail, either in West Boylston or to the one here in Sterling, I walk right in the middle of the trail, and because a tick will not walk out there. They're on the side in the tall grass. And those are called transitional areas. If you're in the deep woods, you'll have ticks. There are ticks in the deep woods, obviously. But where your lawn or your yard ends and the woods begin, if you're in a situation like that, you'll have a lot of brush and low-lying stuff growing in that area before you get to the woods. The transitional area is where you're going to find the ticks. So you have to be very, very careful of those areas. And people have their yards sprayed. I have my yard sprayed. Does it work? I don't know. I'm not going to take any chance. I don't want to get Lyme disease again, because people say, well, what are you worried about? You're 82, for Christ's sake, you'll be dead. I said, yeah, well, you know, people don't always say nice things to you. They don't. But I never thought I was getting old, except, let me just tell you, we have a certain time that I told, it was last, I think it was last October. I'm old now, so I get up early. I'm used to getting up early because of the golf course. You know, sometimes I'd have to be there at 5:30. I'd be the first one there, and I had a very important job to make the coffee. You know that. Get the coffee going for everybody. So when they came in, but anyways, so I get up early and I'm watching the news, and they had a story about Jimmy Buffett, who died. He was, well, they gave the story and they had his life story. It was very interesting, and I liked some of his music. Then about 15 minutes later, they went back to one again because everybody's just starting to get up and they got to redo the same news stories. And they had a thing across the screen. They didn't talk to them, but it said Jimmy Buffett dead at age 76. And without thinking, I said to myself, oh, what the hell did the guy, what did he think? He was 76. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Then it dawned on me, that was what I call an epiphany for me. And all of a sudden, I think I even woke my wife. I said, honey, we're old. Oh, just go back to sleep. Leave me alone. Yeah. So, anyways, if you have that type of a house and that type of a yard situation, you're probably going to have ticks. So we went over the tick habitats where you most likely to find them. How do you protect it? Some of the things they advise you to do is to put DEET on your clothing and supposedly on your skin too. I don't know. That works for mosquitoes, but I know if it's going to work for bugs, and DEET does not kill bugs, it just repels the mosquitoes. But if it works for them, what does it do to us? I always wonder about that. Nobody really answers the question for that. So you spray that on your exposed skin, and it'll help keep the ticks away. The other thing that does work very, very good is made by a company called Sawyer's, and you spray this on your clothing and let it dry. You can't, they tell you don't get it on your body. It's insect repellent, but it has a chemical called permethrin, and permethrin kills ticks, and it works very, very good. And so you spray your clothing, so that when you go out, this works very good. It's a little pricey, but to me it's worth it. Permethrin, which is made from a flower. Permethrin is a chemical is made from chrysanthemums. And my friend said to me, Tom, can you spell chrysanthemum? I said, no, but so what? I can't, So maybe you have some specific questions that I'll try to answer. I can't do medical questions like, do you think I have Lyme disease? I have this. Sir?
So you said white-footed mice. Do they really have white feet? How do you tell what they are?
Yeah, I think they do. They're light colored.
So are they predominant? And what if your cat kills a white-footed mouse and eats half of it or something? Then you don't have to feed it dinner.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
If you have a cat who's killing the mice around your house, kills one of these mice that has Lyme disease, will that harm the cat?
I'm sure it helps, but if you see one mouse, you have probably 10 and 20.
I know.
So.
They do have white feet, I just looked it up.
They do have white feet?
Yeah.
They came from Canada, so we can thank our Canadian friends.
So are they predominantly white-footed mice that are around here? Or are they just...
Well, it looks like the ones I get.
Well, we also have jumping mice, too.
Jumping mice?
Yeah, you jump around.
Really?
What about your symptoms, Tom? Tell us about some of the symptoms that you had. Everybody has so many different symptoms,
Yes, they do.
and getting diagnosed sometimes, like you said, takes forever.
what were my symptoms? Is that what you're asking? I was just, because I had it so long, it starts to affect you, excuse me, neurologically. It affects you, you know?